Morning America. This morning, the summer scorcher heat alerts from Oklahoma to Vermont. Temperatures soaring into the triple digits as wildfires rage in the American West, sweeping through this yard in seconds. The all-out battle this morning to fight those flames.
A vigil for the victims, remembering those gunned down in the Annapolis newspaper massacre as we see new images from that horrifying day. Plus, what we're learning about the shooting suspect and his past days in court.
Presidential pick, Donald Trump revealing when he'll announce his choice for a new Supreme Court justice, what he says he won't be asking them. Plus, was he the center of a presidential prank on board Air Force One?
Caught on camera, look at this. The new outrage this morning over this video of a police officer tasing a man in the back.
Oh, come on, bro.
Was the man confused about the officer's commands? The city's mayor weighing in and the investigation this morning.
And puppy rescue. The adorable dog who fell 50 feet down a hole, a community coming together to save her.
This is a miracle. I still can't believe she's really out.
The hurdles they went through to pull her to safety.
Live from ABC News in New York, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning. Paula is off. Very happy, though, to have Diane Macedo and Whit Johnson on the desk on a Saturday morning.
Good to be here.
It takes two of us to fill Paula's shoes.
There you go.
You know, two anchors, yep.
We'll try.
Can we bring back that video of the dog from Alabama? The rescue of 7-week-old Toffee, completed just hours ago. Ron Claiborne says they're using a stunt double dog in this video.
Because that was just too cute.
That's the real dog, I believe you.
So getting the dog out was no easy feat. Rescuers had to try all sorts of tricks, some involving dog food and a net. We have the full story of how they saved Toffee coming up.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. But first, though, we start with dangerous weather, a story affecting millions of Americans. A heat wave hitting huge parts of the country on this weekend before July 4th, and it's likely to stick around through the holiday. Rob is out in Central Park tracking it all. Rob, good morning.
Hey, good morning. It's starting to get a little bit more muggy here in New York, but the heat wave has already begun across the midsection of the country. Chicago, for instance, the heat index last night was near 100 degrees at midnight. So the overnight low is going to be a huge issue as far as comfort and the dangerous levels of heat and humidity. As far as the heat goes and the dry air, we had fire conditions across the West. Over 50 large fires right now burning across much of the country. And in California, we start there with the Concord fire and also the Waverly fire, evacuation of the way in Milton, California. 10% containment there. Hot, dry conditions will continue. And also the Spring fire, 28,000 acres burned in Colorado with zero containment. So very concerned about that with no rain in the forecast for the West, especially the Southwest. Heat warnings and advisories. Look at this. How many states, how many big cities are under excessive heat warnings today and tomorrow, meaning heat indices will be up and over 100 degrees in many of these spots, including Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, you too as well today. Then it builds off to the east tomorrow. Nashville, Raleigh, D.C., New York City in it as well. And some of these highs will be record-breaking, not just over the weekend, but also into the beginning of next week, potentially right through the holiday, July 4th, and in many cases not ending till the end of the week. So a long duration heat event here, the first real one of the season for many folks as we head now into July. So you're going to want to take care of yourself, your pets, and certainly the elderly in your neighborhood. More on this throughout the hour. Guys, back inside to you.
Rob, thanks. Be sure to try to stay cool and check on our neighbors over the course of the week. And now let's get to that deadly rampage in Annapolis. The Baltimore Orioles are among those honoring the victims, holding a moment of silence before their game against the Angels and tweeting a picture of the Capitol Gazette's seat in the team's press box. ABC's Gio Benitez is in Annapolis, where several vigils were held overnight. Gio, good morning.
Diane, good morning to you. Yeah, those vigils making it to the front page of this morning's Capitol Gazette. You see that photo right there with that ominous headline, "Suspect swore oath to kill." And this morning, we are learning so much more about that suspect.
Overnight candlelight vigils all across Annapolis, remembering the 5 lives lost inside the Capitol Gazette building Thursday. Rachel Pasella is a reporter at the paper and was injured in the shooting.
What do I want the world to know about my colleagues? That I'll miss them.
Reporter Wendy Winters, editorial writer Gerald Fishman, editor John McNamara, sales assistant Rebecca Smith, and editor and columnist Robert Hyacin, all killed, police say, by the suspected shooter, 38-year-old Jared Ramos, seen here being led away in handcuffs right after the shooting. Other cell phone videos capturing the chaos, survivors evacuating the building.
Five more coming. Five.
Marjorie Rock was on the second floor recording the video.
Put your hands up.
There were about 7 large officers, heavily armed, heavily armored, screaming at us. Get your hands up, get your hands up, get your hands up.
Authorities believe Ramos held a deep grudge against the paper. Back in 2011, it reported on Ramos harassing a woman online. He pleaded guilty to harassment. That woman's attorney speaking to our Pierre Thomas about that day in court.
How angry was he?
Incredibly angry. The malice dripped off this man in court.
Ramos sued the paper for defamation, but it was dismissed. His fury took him to Twitter, telling one reporter, "Hell awaits," and to 2 editors, it would be nicer to see them cease breathing. One of those editors, Tom Marquardt.
When I heard his name, didn't surprise me.
President Trump offering these words Friday.
This attack shocked the conscience of our nation and filled our hearts with grief. Journalists, like all Americans, should be free from the fear of being violently attacked while doing their job.
And it's just incredible to think that this paper, this staff is so determined. They have not skipped a single day of publishing this paper. So I want to show you this video right now because the staff sent us this overnight, and it shows the Capital Gazette team printing that Saturday edition of the paper, really showing strength in the face of tragedy. Guys, back to you.
Gio, thank you. A deep respect to the staff of the Capital Gazette.
Absolutely.
Again, Gio, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. President Trump, you saw him in Gio's piece. He was not just weighing in on the shooting, but he also made some news overnight about his pick for the Supreme Court. He says he will make his announcement on July 9th, 10 days from now. He'll be interviewing potential candidates at his golf club in New Jersey over the weekend. That's where he'll be spending this weekend. But he raised some eyebrows when he said he will not be asking the contenders about Roe v. Wade, the case that legalized abortion in this country. White House correspondent Tara Palmieri is in New Jersey this morning. Tara, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan. That's right. President Trump says he'll be announcing his Supreme Court nominee in less than 2 weeks, and he'll be working this weekend to narrow down his top picks. He says he's down to 5, and 2 of them are women. This morning, the countdown is on.
Look, I like them all. I think they're 5, but I've got it down to about 5.
Aboard Air Force One for a weekend of golf with his family, President Trump revealing to reporters he's narrowed down his Supreme Court shortlist to 5. 2 of those candidates are women. He says he'll announce his pick on July 9th. Despite campaign promises, President Trump telling Fox News the position of any of these prospective nominees on abortion is not a critical issue.
Are you going to ask your nominees beforehand how they might vote on Roe versus Wade?
Well, that's a big one, and probably not. They're all saying, don't do that, you don't do that, you shouldn't do that, but I'm putting conservative people on.
It's been just 3 days since Justice Kennedy announced his retirement, and Republicans are eager to quickly fill the seat for a political win before the midterms. They only have a razor-thin majority in the Senate. Meanwhile, Democrats say they are ready to put up a fight over this seat.
Now is the moment we must fight.
This comes as we're learning about an alleged major breach in White House security protocol.
Are you ready for the call?
Yes.
Okay, let me try and connect.
Hours after leaving this cheering crowd in North Dakota on Wednesday, the president, or what sounds like him, allegedly thought he was taking a call aboard Air Force One from Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey.
Hi, Bob. Hey, how are you?
The voice on the other of the phone claiming to be a former Howard Stern sidekick known as Stuttering John Melendez. The comedian now saying he pulled a prank on the president for his Stuttering John podcast. The purported president discussing his plans on immigration and his Supreme Court shortlist.
I have a list of people. I have a big list of people, Bob, and we'll take a look at it. And we're going to make a decision. I'll probably make it over the next couple of weeks.
The White House isn't commenting on this or whether that's even the president's voice on the line. We do know from a source in Senator Menendez's office that they reached out to find out why Senator Menendez reached out to the president, but they said he never called. The comedian claims that he was patched through by the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Dan?
Okay. Tara, thank you. Lots to talk about here. So let's bring in ABC News contributor and conservative commentator Tara Setmeyer, who's joining us from Washington this morning. Tara, I'll spare you the Stuttering John questions, and let's get straight to the Supreme Court. The president says He won't ask Supreme Court contenders when he meets them over the weekend in New Jersey about Roe v. Wade. Do you buy that? And I mean, isn't that maybe just a technicality since he already knows where most of them stand, I would imagine, through the vetting process?
Absolutely. I mean, the president has already had a list compiled from conservative groups who have been waiting for years to have this opportunity. So the issue of abortion and Roe v. Wade is something that always looms in the back of everyone's mind, and it also gets asked during the confirmation hearings with the Senate. So the fact that the president's coming out and saying this now, I think he's just trying to tamp down all the speculation and from Democrats who are concerned about Roe v. Wade potentially being overturned and turning this into a major political issue. So I think he's attempting to tamp it down. But obviously, a lot of people are seeing this as disingenuous. We may never know what questions he actually asks or what he talks about in these confidential meetings with these potential candidates, but it's certainly something that looms large. But the idea of having an ideological litmus test has been something that most people in this process don't like to do, because they say that should not be the criteria for a Supreme Court justice. It should be their interpretation of law and the Constitution. And even the more pro-choice Republicans like Senator Murkowski and Collins have said that they would not apply that litmus test to a nominee either.
Well, let's talk about the politics here. If the president picks somebody who wants to roll back Roe or who may be leaning in that direction, what kind of impact is that likely to have on elections going forward, specifically the midterm elections among female voters?
Well, it's an issue that will certainly bring out a lot of people. I mean, the idea of a Supreme Court nominee, potential justice that would roll back Roe v. Wade, I think would be a huge issue in November. But I just don't see the president picking someone that would step on that landmine. Whoever he picks will be someone that's savvy enough to get through the nomination process and the confirmation process without doing that. We haven't really had any nominees come out and say directly that, yes, I'll roll that back. They've been very judicious, if I may, in their answers on that question. So I just don't see the Senate confirming someone that would do that. So, but it certainly will be an issue that will get people out to the polls, because it's important to a lot of women in this country, both pro-life and pro-choice movements. So it's another issue that will get people to the polls in November for sure.
As I have said, let it not be said that we don't live in interesting times. Tara Setmeyer, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Whit, over to you.
Thank you.
Dan, thank you. Overseas now, it has been a week since a young soccer team disappeared in a system of caves in Thailand. An intense search now underway to find those boys, but rain is slowing down the rescue effort. ABC's foreign correspondent James Longman is at the scene with the latest.
1 week since the 12 young soccer players and their coach went missing in these caves, and the search is intensifying. Over 1,000 forming an international rescue team, among them US, British and Chinese specialists, trying anything they can, drilling into the rock face, dropping maps and care packages through small crevices, and using ultrasonic sensors for any sign of life.
It's a colossal effort. This small patch of jungle transformed into a major operational centre, and it's right at the entrance to that cave.
The team trapped along miles of passageways and tunnels running underground that can flood up to 20 feet during recent heavy downpours. The hope is they found higher ground somewhere inside to escape the floods. They could survive for weeks if they have clean water. And meanwhile, an entire nation looks on in hope. This mother calling out, "My son, come out, I'm waiting for you here." The only thing remaining, the boys' bicycles, left at the entrance before they went in for what should have been a fun excursion.
Another entrance has been found, but the issue is so much of these caves have never been explored, so rescuers really not sure what they're going to find, although everyone here, of course, is staying hopeful. Guys?
Yeah, fingers crossed across that country and this one.
Yeah.
It's amazing how they're putting the care packages down into the cave, just hoping that they might stumble upon some of these goods and food and water to keep them surviving
And
down
parents
there.
standing outside trying to
Amazing.
yell to their kids, hoping they can somehow hear them inside.
Wrenching for those parents. There is, however, a lot of other news this morning, and for that we kick it over to Dr. Ron Claiborne. Good morning,
I knew
sir.
that was coming.
Got the doctor this morning.
Good morning to you, Dan and Diane, Whit,
Adrian, and wherever you are, Rob Marciano, good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin with a warning from General Motors that it may have to raise car prices and cut jobs because of tariffs proposed by the Trump administration. The automaker says tariffs on imported cars and car parts could drive up the cost of a car by thousands of dollars and force the company to slash jobs and cut wages. GM relies heavily on auto parts from overseas companies to craft their cars. At Dulles Airport near Washington, D.C., an emotional reunion for a mother and a son who were separated entering the U.S. from Mexico illegally under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy. Here they are together hugging for the first time in 34 days. 7-year-old Kevin and his mother, only identified as Brenda, who are from El Salvador, were placed in separate shelters. They're now working their way through the asylum process. Time is running out for hundreds of Puerto Ricans affected by Hurricane Maria who had been getting temporary government housing assistance. Nearly 1,800 people will have to leave hotels across the country this weekend or pay to stay. FEMA says it will cover airfare for those returning to Puerto Rico. 7 U.S. senators, meanwhile, are urging FEMA to extend that housing deadline, with time running out. In Cherry Hill, New Jersey, a school bus overturning, injuring 16 children and 2 adults. The bus was taking members of a Boys and Girls Club to a field trip Friday morning when it crashed on the New Jersey Turnpike. All of those injuries, however, are minor mechanical problems suspected as a possible cause of that crash. And in Georgia, a woman known as the Dancing Doctor has agreed to give up her medical license for at least the next 2.5 years. Wendell Boot reached those terms with Georgia's medical board yesterday. The decision was not about dancing while performing surgery. The board found that Boot had failed to meet medical standards in 7 cases. And finally, a less than great escape in Alberta, Canada, a couple trying to escape police after being accused of using a stolen credit card at a mini-mart. The man there seen running away, but the other suspect, Brittany Burke, climbing into a ceiling vent. Oh! Then she comes. Oh my! Yeah, that's her crashing down. They got the guy. They got Brittany. They're both under arrest, and
that never works, by the way.
Yeah.
The ventilations.
It's meant to. Don't try that.
It's meant to carry air, not human beings, through the ceiling.
I think she knows that now.
Yes, she does. They'll know better.
She won't
the next
do it
time.
again. That's
she
right.
will not allegedly do it again.
Yeah.
Witt says that like he's tried it. I love that. So, Ron, you missed a story because today is actually a very important anniversary.
It is indeed.
32 years ago today, a young man, a fresh-faced man named Ronald Claiborne came to work for the first time here.
Should not have
Look at that guy. Look at that.
Look the exact same.
My son.
And it's been 32 glorious years since then.
Wow.
And as you know, you have a lot of admirers, myself included, right here
Thank you very much.
at ABC.
All of us. And it only feels like 32 years. Let's go on quick.
Congratulations.
Congrats, Ron.
Definitely.
An important part of this organization. Let's get it outside for another important part of this organization. Rob Marciano dressed for golf out in Central Park. Hey, man, what's happening?
Well, I guess I got to wait 28 years before I get a seat on the desk. Congratulations to you, Ron. We're in Central Park, as Ron was wondering, but folks are trying to beat the heat by taking a run. There's actually a cycling race happening here. The New York City Triathlon happens this weekend. They'll be battling some heat. They're battling some severe weather across the upper Midwest. Yesterday, check out a look at some of this hail near Rapid City, South Dakota, where in some cases it was baseball size. I-90 damaging cars there. You see the windshields blown out. We might see more of that today. The highlighted area is going to be just to the east of that, and potentially some flash flooding around Omaha and through Des Moines and Mason City, Iowa, with heavy rain with some of these storms as well as they push off to the east very slowly because the heat, that big heat dome, is just kind of blocking everything. So we're watching this closely. That's a check on what's happening nationally weather-wise. Time now for a look at your local forecast.
Well, it's a hot and humid weekend ahead. Temperatures today reaching into the upper 90s, but we're under mostly sunny skies. A code orange has been issued for this afternoon, so if you are in the sensitive groups, make sure you limit your time spent outdoors. Through the day tomorrow, the heat continues to build. Take a look at our feels-like temperatures for your Sunday, breaking into the triple digits, and some heat advisories will be possible, so make sure you're staying well hydrated and take frequent breaks if you'll be outdoors. All of this warmth continues into next week.
I'm not coming in today for the rest of the show, so I grabbed a little prop from Pop News and got to eat later on. Back inside you. Thanks, Adrian.
Wait a minute. We can't understand a word you're saying.
Don't speak with your mouth full.
That may have been his intention.
Is there a chipmunk out there?
The peanut butter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got peanut butter.